What if I told you that some of the most iconic chocolate bars in America, the ones you've been grabbing at checkout lines and tossing into Halloween buckets for decades, are not actually chocolate? Not legally. Not by the FDA's own definition. And what makes this even wilder is that the companies behind these products know exactly what they're doing. They quietly changed their recipes. They swapped out real ingredients for cheaper substitutes. And then they hoped you wouldn't notice. Well, someone noticed. In October 2025, an investigation by reporter Claire Brown at the New York Times dropped a bombshell on the American candy industry. She found that major brands, including some of the most beloved names in American confectionery history, had been quietly removing the words milk chocolate from their product labels and replacing them with softer, vaguer phrases like chocolate candy. It wasn't a typo. It wasn't a design refresh. It was a legal workaround. Because those brands had reduced their real chocolate content so much that they no longer qualified to use the term milk chocolate under federal law. If that makes you angry, good. You should know what's in your food. And if it makes you curious, good. Keep watching, because today we're going to break it all down. We're going to tell you exactly which brands are using fake ingredients, why they're doing it, what the law says about it, and then, because this channel is all about helping you make better choices, we're going to tell you about 5 brands that are still doing this the right way. Let's get into it. The science and the law. What is real milk chocolate? Before we name names, let's get one thing straight: the difference between real milk chocolate and its cheap imitations is not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of law. Under Title 21 of the Code of Federal Regulations, specifically the FDA's Standards of Identity for Cacao Products, milk chocolate sold in the United States has to meet very specific requirements. The product must contain at least 10% chocolate liquor. Now don't let the word liquor confuse you. This has nothing to do with alcohol. Chocolate liquor is the thick, dark, intensely flavored paste that gets produced when you grind roasted cocoa beans. It's the real foundation of chocolate flavor. The product also needs at least 39% milk fat and at least 12% milk solids. But here's the part that matters most for this video: the only fat allowed in real milk chocolate is cocoa butter and milk fat. That's it. No vegetable oil. No palm kernel oil. No fractionated anything. If a company replaces cocoa butter with a cheaper fat substitute, that product is not milk chocolate. And by law, they are not allowed to call it milk chocolate on the label. Now why does this matter from a taste perspective? Because cocoa butter is extraordinary. It's a natural fat that melts at almost exactly body temperature, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which is precisely why good chocolate melts in your mouth and not in your hand. It gives chocolate that satisfying snap when you break it. It contributes to the deep, smooth, rich finish that lingers on your palate. Vegetable oil substitutes, especially palm kernel oil, which according to food science professor Richard Hartel at the University of Wisconsin-Madison is now the industry standard replacement, melt differently, have a greasier mouthfeel, and simply cannot replicate the complex sensory experience of real cocoa butter. So when a brand swaps cocoa butter for palm kernel oil, they're not just cutting costs. They're degrading the product. And they're legally obligated to stop calling it chocolate. Now let's talk about who's been doing exactly that. Brand 1, Hershey's, Almond Joy, Mr. Goodbar, and Rolo. Let's start with the biggest chocolate company in America. Hershey's. And before the Hershey loyalists in the comments say anything, we need to talk about what's been happening behind the scenes, because the story is actually more complicated than a simple "Hershey's is bad" take. The New York Times investigation that broke in October 2025 used multiple ingredient databases, including the USDA's own ingredient records and crowdsourced data compiled by Professor Hartel, who tracks candy bar ingredients each year for his university food science courses, to identify exactly which products had quietly changed. The findings were clear: Almond Joy, Mr. Goodbar, and Rolo had all been updated to remove the words milk chocolate from their packaging. The changes were subtle and designed to be easy to miss. The Mr. Goodbar wrapper changed from saying milk chocolate with peanuts on the front to chocolate candy with peanuts. Almond Joy was relabeled as a coconut and almond chocolate candy bar. Rolos, the little caramel-filled coins that have been wrapped in gold foil since the 1930s, are now marketed as rich chocolate candy, instead of their original milk chocolate description. Each of those changes happened because the recipe had already been changed underneath the label. Why did this happen? The answer is cocoa prices. West Africa produces the majority of the world's cocoa, and climate-driven drought and disease sent prices to historic highs in 2024 and into 2025. That kind of spike puts enormous pressure on large-scale manufacturers whose business model depends on keeping cost per unit low. So some companies did the math and cut cocoa content just enough to slip below the 10% chocolate liquor minimum the FDA requires for the milk chocolate label, and filled the gap with palm kernel oil, which Professor Hartel has noted publicly mimics some cocoa butter properties at a fraction of the cost. Now here's where the story takes an interesting turn. Brad Reese, the grandson of H.B. Reese, the man who literally invented Reese's peanut butter cups, went public with his frustrations about exactly this pattern within the broader Hershey portfolio. His quote says it all: "What they've done is they've substituted vegetable oils for cocoa butter. It has become junk and bad for you." He specifically pointed to products like Reese's Sticks, which he says made the switch away from real milk chocolate years ago, and was relabeled chocolate candy as a result. The public backlash from the NYT investigation and from Brad Reese's very vocal criticism was significant enough that Hershey responded. In April 2026, the company announced that starting in 2027, they will be transitioning their chocolate-based products back to traditional milk and dark chocolate recipes using real cocoa butter. They specifically named Kit Kat, which will get a creamier texture, and various Hershey's and Reese's products that had strayed from their classic formulas. It's a major course correction, and credit where it's due, the company listened. But 2027 is still not today. And between now and then, those labels still say chocolate candy, not milk chocolate. The lesson here? Even the biggest, most American chocolate brand in history isn't immune to ingredient degradation when the economic pressure gets intense enough. Always read the back of the wrapper. Brand 2, Butterfinger and the compound coating category. While Hershey took most of the headlines in the 2025 NYT investigation, there's a whole parallel category of products that have never been real chocolate, and Butterfinger is the most iconic example. The FDA recognizes a product category called sweet cocoa and vegetable fat coating, what most people would informally call compound chocolate or fake chocolate. It's made with cocoa powder rather than chocolate liquor, and the fat source is vegetable oil rather than cocoa butter. These coatings look like chocolate. They taste vaguely like chocolate. But they are legally not chocolate. Go look at a Butterfinger package right now. You will not find the word chocolate anywhere on the front wrapper describing that coating. That's not a design choice, it's a legal requirement. The coating is made with corn syrup, vegetable oil, milk, and some cocoa, but the fat source is vegetable oil rather than cocoa butter, and the cocoa content falls short of FDA minimums. So it can't be called chocolate. It's always been chocolate candy, or chocolatey. Most people have never noticed. The PBS NewsHour covered this in April 2026, noting that palm kernel oil has become the industry standard replacement for cocoa butter across the candy sector, specifically because it mimics some of cocoa butter's properties at a significantly lower cost. Once a company reformulates to the cheaper ingredient, the business incentive to switch back, even when cocoa prices fall, is surprisingly weak. The rule: look for the words milk chocolate and verify that cocoa butter appears in the ingredient list. If you see palm kernel oil, vegetable oil, or cocoa without cocoa butter listed separately, that's compound coating, not real chocolate. Brand 3, the broader industry pattern, chocolatey as a red flag. For our third entry, we're zooming out and calling out an entire industry practice, because this isn't just about one or two brands. It's about labeling language specifically designed to keep you from noticing that real chocolate has been replaced with something cheaper. The warning word is chocolatey, or chocolate flavored, or chocolate candy. Each of those phrases on the front of a package is a legal signal. The product couldn't legally use the word chocolate by itself. Sometimes it's because compound coating replaced real cocoa butter. Sometimes the cocoa content just fell below the FDA's 10% chocolate liquor minimum. Either way, the label had to change. R.M. Palmer is a textbook example. This Pennsylvania company is everywhere at drugstores and dollar stores, with its foil-wrapped Valentine's hearts, Easter eggs, and Christmas Santas. But their iconic seasonal candies use cocoa processed with alkali, that's Dutch processed cocoa powder, not chocolate liquor, plus hydrogenated vegetable oil and vanillin, a synthetic vanilla substitute. It looks like chocolate, it ships in chocolate-colored wrappers, but it contains none of the ingredients that legally define chocolate. The underlying cause driving all of this? Cocoa prices spiked dramatically in 2024 and 2025 due to climate-driven drought and crop disease in West Africa. That sent every large candy manufacturer scrambling to reduce real cocoa content just enough to cut costs. Some got caught when investigative journalists started comparing 2015 ingredient labels to 2025 ingredient labels side by side. Once you see that comparison, once you realize a candy bar you've eaten your whole life no longer has the same formula, you can't unsee it. That's why the 30-second label flip matters. And that's exactly why we're also here to tell you about the brands still doing this right. The good stuff, 5 brands that are actually real milk chocolate. Brand 1, Ghirardelli. If you want an accessible, widely available real milk chocolate in the United States, Ghirardelli is your first and strongest answer. This San Francisco company, founded in 1852, which makes it one of the oldest chocolate companies in the country, has never wavered on the core ingredient question. Their milk chocolate products use real cocoa butter. Full stop. According to Ghirardelli's own product FAQ, the company has worked to source 100% of its cocoa beans through their farming program by 2020, and then extended that sustainability certification to include their cocoa butter supply starting in 2021. The typical cocoa content across their product line sits at around 50%, meaning roughly half of the roasted cocoa bean material becomes the fat that's in your bar. That's real cocoa butter, and that's why Ghirardelli chocolate melts and behaves and tastes the way it does. The direct product confirmation is right on the ingredient label of their milk chocolate premium baking chips: cane sugar, unsweetened chocolate, whole milk powder, cocoa butter, soy lecithin, vanilla extract. That's it. No palm oil. No vegetable fat. No compound coating language. Just chocolate. Pastry chefs and home bakers who work with Ghirardelli will tell you the same thing: real cocoa butter tempering is more predictable, produces a better gloss, and delivers a superior snap compared to compound alternatives. That's not just snobbery, it's food science. Ghirardelli milk chocolate bars typically retail at around $3 to $4 for a 3.5-ounce bar, which puts it in a different price tier than a drugstore candy bar. But you're paying for a genuinely different product. It's worth it. Brand 2, Dove, Mars. This one surprises people, because Dove is made by Mars, the same company behind Twix and Milky Way, which we've discussed in this channel before for their ingredient choices. But Dove is an entirely different product line within the Mars portfolio, and it tells a very different ingredient story. Dove milk chocolate lists cocoa butter explicitly and prominently in its ingredient list, and the result is immediately noticeable in the texture. Dove has a noticeably silkier, creamier mouthfeel than almost any other mass-market milk chocolate in America. There's a reason people describe it as melting in their mouth differently from other candy bars. That sensation is cocoa butter doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Dove is also interesting because it demonstrates something important: ingredient integrity is a choice, even at the large corporate level. The same parent company making Dove is also making products with less premium formulas. They have the capability and the supply chain relationships to make real chocolate. On some product lines, they choose to do it. On others, they don't. That distinction is on you as a consumer to notice. Dove milk chocolate bars run around $2 to $3 for a standard bar at most major retailers, making this one of the most accessible, real chocolate options you'll find outside of a specialty store. Brand 3, Cadbury Dairy Milk, U.S. version. Here's a nuance that genuinely matters for American consumers. The version of Cadbury Dairy Milk sold in the United States is not the same formula as what's sold in the United Kingdom or Europe. In those markets, Cadbury is permitted under local regulations to use vegetable fats, including palm oil and shea butter, in addition to cocoa butter. That flexibility is why UK Cadbury tastes different to some palates. In the United States, however, Cadbury products must meet FDA standards of identity, which means no vegetable fat substitutes. The American Cadbury Dairy Milk uses cocoa butter as its only fat source. Tasting Table has ranked it as a recognizable chocolate brand with genuine creaminess, driven by its high milk solid content and cocoa butter base. One caveat worth knowing, Cadbury products in the U.S. are manufactured under license from Mondelez International and produced domestically, which is part of why there's sometimes variation in quality between production runs. But the core formula, when it's right, delivers a genuinely creamy milk chocolate experience that meets every FDA standard for the real thing. Brand 4, Theo Chocolate. Seattle-based Theo Chocolate is one of the most important American craft chocolate success stories of the past 20 years. They were the first organic, fair-trade bean-to-bar chocolate company in the United States, and they've built their entire brand identity around ingredient transparency. What does bean-to-bar mean in practice? It means Theo controls every step of the chocolate-making process. They select the cacao beans by origin, roast them in-house, grind them, conch them, and temper the finished bars. Nothing is outsourced to a commodity chocolate supplier. Every bar reflects a deliberate set of ingredient decisions made at every step of the process. Their classic milk chocolate bar uses organic cacao, cocoa butter, organic cane sugar, organic whole milk powder, and organic vanilla. 5 ingredients. That's it. No vanillin, no PGPR, no palm anything, no natural flavors, as a catch-all. For people who want to know exactly what they're eating, Theo represents the clearest answer available from an American brand. Theo bars typically retail around $4 to $5 for a 3-ounce bar. That's a premium price point, but you are getting a meaningfully different product from a mass-market candy bar, in terms of cocoa origin, processing transparency, and ingredient quality. Brand 5, Guittard Chocolate. Our final entry is one that a lot of everyday chocolate consumers don't know by name, even though they've almost certainly eaten products made with Guittard chocolate without realizing it. Guittard is a San Francisco family-owned company that's been operating since 1868, older than Ghirardelli's current ownership structure, making it arguably the oldest continuously family-operated chocolate company in America. Guittard supplies chocolate to professional bakers, pastry chefs, and specialty retailers across the country. Their consumer-facing product lines, including milk chocolate chips, wafers, and bars, use real cocoa butter formulas that the company has maintained without compromise throughout their history. Unlike publicly traded confectionery giants who face quarterly earnings pressure to cut ingredient costs, Guittard's family ownership means they've been able to make long-term ingredient quality commitments that don't get revisited every fiscal quarter. Food writers and chocolate educators consistently cite Guittard's milk chocolate baking chips as among the best widely available products in that category, specifically because the flavor profile reflects real cocoa butter rather than a vegetable oil stand-in. If you've had a professionally baked cookie, a pastry shop ganache, or a chocolatier's truffle in the United States in the last few decades, there's a decent chance Guittard chocolate was involved. Their retail products are available at specialty grocery stores, baking supply shops, and online, typically in the $5 to $8 range for larger baking bags. For baking specifically, Guittard is one of the most trusted names in the industry. How to check any chocolate bar in 30 seconds. Okay, so now you know the landscape. Here's what you actually do with this information the next time you're standing in the candy aisle or reaching for something at checkout. Step 1, look at the front of the package. Does it say, milk chocolate? Or does it say, chocolate candy, chocolatey, chocolate flavored, or made with chocolate. If it's anything other than milk chocolate, that's your first red flag. Step 2, flip it over. Find the ingredient list. Scan for cocoa butter. Is it there? Good sign. Now look for what else is in the fat category. Do you see palm kernel oil, vegetable oil, palm oil, fractionated palm kernel oil, or hydrogenated vegetable fat? If those are listed as fats in a product calling itself chocolate, you are looking at a compound coating, regardless of what the front says. Step 3, check the order of ingredients. Ingredients are listed by weight, from most to least. If sugar is the very first ingredient, you're looking at a product that is primarily sugar. That's not inherently disqualifying, most milk chocolate is fairly sweet, but if cocoa butter is buried deep in the list behind multiple types of sugar and oils, the chocolate content in that bar is minimal. That's it. 30 seconds. 3 steps. You now have the information to make an informed choice about every single chocolate product you buy. What's happening in the industry right now? The cocoa price crisis that drove much of this ingredient degradation has begun to stabilize. By mid-2025, prices had fallen close to 80% from their 2024 highs as West African harvests recovered. That's good news in theory, but it doesn't automatically mean brands will snap back to their original recipes. Reformulating back to cocoa butter takes time, and supply chain relationships change. Hershey's announced return to real chocolate formula stretches to 2027, which means you still need to be reading labels carefully right now. The positive side, the public conversation around chocolate ingredient integrity has never been louder. Between the NYT investigation, NPR Planet Money coverage, PBS segments, and Brad Reese's vocal advocacy, it's become significantly harder for brands to quietly reformulate without consequences. American consumers who care enough to flip the wrapper have real power in this moment. Alright, let's bring this home. The dark truth about milk chocolate in America is this: for the past several years, some of the most trusted brands in the candy aisle have been quietly reducing their real chocolate content, swapping in palm kernel oil for cocoa butter, and changing their labels in the smallest possible font hoping you wouldn't notice. Some got caught. Some are correcting course. And some have never wavered. Brands like Ghirardelli, Dove, Cadbury US, Theo, and Guittard are still making products that meet the FDA standard for real milk chocolate. The fix is simple: flip the wrapper, check for cocoa butter, and know the difference between milk chocolate and chocolate candy. You're now armed with everything you need to make that call. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know before, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps us reach more chocolate lovers like you. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we've got more deep dives coming on ingredients, sourcing, craft chocolate brands, and everything in between. And drop a comment below: which brand surprised you the most in this video? And which one do you want us to investigate next? Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and always flip the wrapper.